When it comes to the fighting game genre, I can be very selective on what I want to play. When I was younger, it was never a genre that I was very interested in. I played a few of the big names at the time, but they never really caught my attention. That all changed when I played Soul Calibur 2 on the GameCube. There was something special about this entry that really was my introduction into the fighting game genre. I found the use of weapons very interesting, and I liked how different the characters were. This is going to sound a bit odd, but I always liked how accessible this series was. I found fighting games to be rather intimidating when I was younger. Now there is something great about picking up a title and continually working to get better at that game and then earning that sense of satisfaction. On the flip side, it's also nice to be able to just pick up a title and be able to immediately get into it. I found Soul Calibur 2 to be the game that was engaging for the hardcore fans and accessible for newcomers. The music, levels, weapons, and characters all created a great and memorable experience. I wouldn't call myself a diehard fan of the series, but rather someone who enjoys when a new entry comes around. I had the opportunity to play Soul Calibur 6 at PAX East and found it to be delightfully familiar with implementing some new elements. It piqued my interest and I wanted to try out the full release. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review for Soul Calibur 6. Soul Calibur 6 is a fun fighting game that puts a focus on weapon-based combat.
This is it.
I find it to be rather hit and miss for the last several years whether a fighting game will have enough options for offline and single-player modes. Some games like to not include many of these modes to favor the competitive online play. And while I do think competitive online play is very important for this genre, I do think that there are players that still want those single-player modes. And I was pleasantly surprised with the single-player offerings that this game provided. You effectively get two extensive story modes and a traditional offline versus mode, and then being able to climb the ladder in arcade mode. I do wish the arcade mode had a bit more going on for it in terms of the rewards it gives. You do earn soul points for completing arcade, but I wish they had something specific for each of the characters that you completed it with. Call me old school, but I really enjoyed how in older fighters you would play arcade mode and then earn something specific like a cutscene for that character. It was a little reward that made it worth completing every character within arcade mode. The first story mode I tried allows you to experience many mini-stories within the characters of Soul Calibur. In concept, I really like this approach as you get a personal adventure with each of the characters, and this could allow you to really get to know them better and expand that fiction. While playing this mode is fun, I do think it could have been better in the presentation and execution departments. The story sequences are all fully voice acted, but many of the cutscenes are just two talking heads with the heads changing depending on their tone. This feels rather cheap considering this is a big budget game. I feel like the stories would have benefited from having cutscenes to really play up the narratives. And while some of the stories do have these animated cutscenes, I do think more of them should have been in there, because the ones they have are quite good.
Show me what you got. What?
If the developers wanted to use images as a means to tell their stories, I think it would have worked better if they put in some actual cutscenes in between them just to liven up the presentation. Especially when the characters are fighting. It just looks awkward when the characters are fighting within the still images and you just hear the actions and the grunts of the characters, but you can't actually see the fight.
Sorcerer. Some may call me that. However, I have mastered the use of weapons. Place seems full of people just looking for trouble.
I wanted to bring this up because when you look at other fighting games, there has been a new standard that's kind of been set within this department. Well, a different kind of fighter, I love how the Injustice games execute their story mode. You pretty much get a 6-hour film that feels like they went all out. So overall, this story mode is not bad, but it just feels cheap in how they presented the story, but it is worth going through for the character backgrounds along with the unlocks that you get from it. While I had issues with the story mode, the more RPG focused story mode really pulled me in and I found it to be very addictive. This story mode starts out with you creating a fighter for the adventure. There's plenty of options for you to be able to tool with within the character creation. And it's awesome because you can really start to create some favorite characters from other properties in this game. After you make your character, you pick your starting weapon, and the weapons you choose will let your fighter take on the moves of that character within Soul Calibur who uses that weapon. So if you pick the staff, you're going to have the same moveset as Keelik. You will have a map where you can pick points on it to visit and enter battles. The mode consists of completing fights, earning experience points, and obtaining better weapons. The weapons you earn will have different stats and modifiers, so it is enjoyable to continually earn new loot. Earning experience points also never gets old, and the game gives you the option to explore the map even more to be able to continue to grind out your character. Since the gameplay is solid and the fights always net you with something, I found it enjoyable to spend so many of my hours with this game just within this mode. The fights do try to bring some variety with specific challenges or objectives within the stages. Some will require you to defeat a few enemies within a row without receiving very little health recovery, and sometimes you need to defeat enemies with a specific move. One of my favorites is the slippery floor levels.
Damn you!
One new feature I do not remember seeing in prior games is hitting an enemy with a certain red colored move that will put both of the players into a standoff where they're trying to hit each other within slow-mo. I love the cinematic angles for these, and they get even better when the two players connect their weapons again and you go in for a second hit. This helps to spice up the combat and allows the player who was hit by this initial attack to be able to use this to their advantage. These attacks can even cause armor to fall off your opponent. I do wish the destroyed armor stayed on the ground like in Soul Calibur 4, but I'm guessing that this has to do with the new engine along with maximizing the performance. Either way, I miss that detail. The fighting and gameplay as a whole is very good. I really like the variety in weapons you can use along with the different character playstyles. The game is easy to pick up and get a handle on, and it's easy for button mashers to enjoy, while also providing depth for the players that want it. This is really seen in the online mode. I am more of a casual player, and I kept getting destroyed online while seeing other people and how they use their characters. I like how this game provides something for both sets of players. For newcomers, you can enjoy it, and then there's this huge opportunity to improve and get better with your character if you so choose. I did enjoy the online matches, but there were battles where I had some frame rate hiccups. These were small and annoying, and they did hurt the online experience a bit, but they never got to the point where I wanted to stop playing online. Frustrating and annoying, and I hope they get improved. I do want to briefly discuss the Season Pass. I find it odd that they're doing a character-focused Season Pass, especially considering that Soul Calibur 6 has such a fun character creation feature. You can create characters from other games or movies within this game. This adds so much creativity for the player along with a lot of replay. Why would I ever pay for a new character when I could just create one? I feel like these two things go against each other. On top of that, the first character they offer is one that's been in prior entries. It doesn't make sense, and I think it was a bad move. I do like that this game has artwork from the prior games that you can unlock, but I think it was a missed opportunity to not have other unlockables from the prior games. A good one would have been the soundtracks. Soul Calibur 6 allows you to change the music that plays on each of the stages. It would have been great if you could unlock tracks from the prior games and then specifically put those tracks in levels that you want to hear them in. I'm also fine if later on they do this as a free update, but if they're paid updates, I definitely do not approve of those. Even with these issues, Soul Calibur 6 is a very fun time. Soul Calibur 6 is a fun game. It provides gameplay that casual or hardcore players will enjoy. It also has a good amount of single player content for those that do not want to venture online. You have a big story mode that features many mini story arcs along with a fun RPG type mode. The RPG mode provided me with hours of content. The soundtrack is solid and the presentation is pretty good. If you enjoy these games or are a newcomer, I would highly recommend this one.